Number one, number one, number one, number one.
Aloha! Follow me as I share with you what I learned back on the sales line. I'm Khalil McCabe, and this is Sales Story Ninja.
Hey, aloha, and welcome to episode 2 of Sales Story Ninja Radio. And I want to talk about what we're going to be talking about today is the number one objection that I would hear from my sales reps when they started dealing with things. And the number one objection we got is, I got to think about it. And so I actually did a Facebook Live, so I'm actually going to go ahead and switch right over to that right after this. But yeah, that was the number one objection. So go ahead, take a look and listen. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. And again, we're just rolling through it. Aloha. What up? It's Kaleo. And what I want to talk about is, I think the one thing that is holding a lot of people back, and the number one objection I hear with all my trainees is, I got to think about it, right? And I got to think about it, I got to think about it, I got to think about it. I keep just talking about that sense of urgency. And the funny thing is, everybody thinks there's this magic close and magic piece and magic words that you have to say to be able to get to think about it. I got to think about it is telling you, I don't mean to hurt somebody when I say this, but it means you didn't do your job. Because let me ask you, think about the person you love the most, right? Think about the person you love the most. And imagine if they're absolutely sick. And you went to the doctor and you found out, I have cancer, or they're sick or something. And you stood there. How long would it take you to figure out, let's fix it, let's see what it's going to cost? In fact, I remember hearing the other day, there was another timeshare trainer was talking about her pet, her animal. And she was talking about the fact that what had happened was she went to, like in the midst of all this craziness that's going on right now, she actually found out her dog was sick, and she was heartbroken, and she was dealing with a lot of stuff, and just at the end of the day, the cost was insane. It was like 10 grand or something, but she said it's worth it. It's worth it to fix it, and she didn't have to think about it. She did it because it mattered, because there was enough pain associated to not taking action on that. Therefore, she took action. And that's the thing I'm talking about. When we talk about I need to think about it, it comes back to this idea of pain, right? It's that idea of pain versus pleasure. We will take action immediately to avoid pain, right? I think so many people in the timeshare world, what they're pitching is hope for gain, hope for gain, hope for gain. They're pitching this concept of pleasure. And as they're pitching pleasure, it's great and it's easy because people want to talk about fun stuff. But what they forget is that at the end of this presentation, unless there's a pain to not take action, right? Unless there's a pain to not take action, you don't take it. For instance, I want to talk about this idea of even weight loss. We all know what to do to eat healthy, exercise, and we'll lose weight. But so many of us don't do it because we're afraid of that concept of the pain to not do it hasn't increased enough so we can avoid it and have to do it, right? And at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Whenever your customer comes to you and says, I have to think about it, what it's saying is the story in their head is that I'm not sure if this will resolve the pain that I have, or this is not enough to take care or remove whatever it is that we got. And there's one of two problems for that. One of two problems which I'm going to talk about today. The first problem, again, like I said before, everything's about stories, right? So the question is, what story did you not get from your customer? The biggest thing is, did you do a good enough discovery to find out what it is exactly that your customer needs? See, when you go ahead and you do a deep discovery, when you're asking questions like, why? Share with me more. How does that feel? What happens if you couldn't? Are we asking questions to bring up pain points? If you could change anything about your life, your ownership, or anything else, what would it be, right? And those are the questions that you should be asking. If we're not asking those questions, we're missing the opportunity to go ahead and grow and develop and, to get them to see that they need whatever it is that we're going to offer. It doesn't matter whether it's timeshare, whether it's cars, whether it's whatever we're selling, right? If there is no pain, they will not take action, right? We can always talk about the great things we want in life, but we're always going to do those later. We're going to talk about all the things we want in life later, but things that are going to bring us pain. And that's why when people talk about, well, timing is not right, because they're feeling more pain in not being able to pay for their house than they are in not buying my timeshare, not buying my product, not buying my thing. And that's why so many of us need to change that. And so the question is, how do we fix it? How do we get there? how we get there is super simple. We need to go ahead and talk about the time where we had that epiphany, where we had that opportunity, where we had, or we know somebody that had that change, the same change they need, based on the pain they've talked about. And for example, I remember I had a tour that, it wasn't my tour, I was actually walking around, I was a TO at the time, I was a trainer at the time, and what had happened was there was a rep that we were sitting there, and we were chatting a little bit, and we were talking about, she had her tour there, we were talking, and she was sitting there, and she was going, she's kind of doing her rent versus own, and I kind of jumped on the table. First of all, I didn't realize she didn't call me in, but I went to the table anyway to help out. I went to the table, and as we were going, I just did a little quick discovery. I said, hey, can I ask you a question? And they're like, yeah. I said, why do you go on vacation? They go, well, I want my kids to see the world. But I'm like, you can do that on the internet. Why do you go on vacation? Why do you get in your car, jump in your, jump on an airplane, fly, and why do you go on vacation? And they're like, well, because we want our kids to see the world. I'm like, we don't do that on the internet because it's different. Because you can't connect with people. You can't really get that engagement. You can't talk about communities. You can't learn culture. And I said, that's fair enough, but you can learn culture in books. Why do you go? And she's like, why is it so important that you need to know that? And she goes, well, I need my kids to learn what it's like outside of Seattle. I said, why? And she goes, as she goes more and more into it, she starts sharing with me what it is it's done for her and some examples of the kids. And she starts talking about her story. And I said, let me ask you, did you always grow up like that? Or is this something that you want to be able to provide more for your family? She looks at me and she goes, Khalil, I want to be able to give my kids the best opportunities ever, right? And so my question is this to her was, let me ask you, what happens if you couldn't? Boom, that's the question. You got to ask, based on what's so important, what happens if you couldn't provide that? And she goes, I'd be a failure. I'd be a failure as a parent. And so my entire presentation, I re-pitched the entire presentation back to them, and I took the word vacation out of the entire presentation. And all I did was talk about the fact that what she's doing will allow her to become that parent. She will not fail as a parent. She will be the one that's there. And everything was about her being that better parent, her being that better parent, her being that better parent, her being able to be fulfilled emotionally. And that's what caused her to take action that day. And I remember the sales rep looking at me. She goes, you didn't even talk about vacations. I said, no, because it's not about vacations. Timeshare sales is not about vacation. Yes, we sell vacations. That happens to be the conduit or the vehicle to get there. But why people buy is the emotional need that they have inside. And that's why they buy anything in life. We just happen to have this piece. And that's what it is. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen. If you guys can relate to that, go ahead and make a comment. Say, yeah, I get that. Go ahead, make a comment below. I just want to know that what I'm sharing is actually making sense, because that's the number one objection that I get, is that people come back and say, I can't build that urgency, can't get them excited about it, they keep telling me I want to think about it. But the question is, are we building that pain? Are we showing them that bridge to be able to take them from where they're at to make them a superhero of where they want to go? Are we able to build that bridge to people? Because if we're not building that bridge, if we're not showing them how our product can get there, we're not able to do that. In fact, for me, the way that I remember going back and trying to figure out what was it exactly that allowed me to figure this out. And I remember back, I used to pitch at people. I used to box and close, and I did terrible because I just started to upset people. I remember my manager coming up to me, he goes, you got to ask, he was training everybody to ask trial closes, and I asked trial closes all the time, but I did it in a way that caused people to get upset. And what I realized what I wasn't doing is connecting with them, addressing their pain that they were feeling, extracting that from them and being able to resolve that. And everything was about a sales pitch, about a sales pitch, about a sales pitch. And I remember it wasn't until I had this couple that, as we were going through, I take that back, it wasn't a couple, it was actually a single woman that she used to go on what are they called, medical missions to India every single year. And as she went on these medical missions every year, like, she would go ahead and serve and she'd help people. And the entire time I couldn't get a vacation commitment out of her, because either she was being a nurse and working in the hospitals, or she was on her vacation time going out to India and helping other people in need. And we continued to go and continue to go and continue to go. And the entire time, my entire pitch was about what I wanted to give her. What I wanted to give her was the freedom and the flexibility and the ability to be able to live her own life. And she worked so hard and she deserves it. And she should take time for herself. And for her, there was no urgency because there was no pain involved in it. Because what she felt was my product would take her away from the thing that gives her joy. So there would be more pain in buying my product. When we went up to the model, we started showing the room, and she looked at me and she goes, Kaleo, can I ask you a question? And I go, yes, what's the question? She goes, do you have this in India? And again, like a good salesperson, I didn't answer it. I went right back with the question, said, well, let me ask you, what would you need it in India for? She goes, well, I want to make sure that I can give it to my host families. I want to be able to give it to my host family. I said, well, if we can structure something like that where you can take this and give it to your host families in India, would you do it today? And she goes, absolutely. And boom, the think about it disappeared. All the other things disappeared. All of that stuff went away. Because for her, her pain of not doing it just became greater. Because her pain was she could not find a way to thank the people that allowed her to live her mission in her life. She didn't have the ability to do that. And my program gave her a way to give thanks to the people that served her while she continued to serve, because that was for her. That was her need. That was her pain. And that's what it is, guys. The part we have to do is we have to relive that story for them. We have to relive that story for them. We talk about third-party stories being the thing that everybody got to be good at. The truth is, most people aren't good at third-party stories because they're just telling the story. They're not allowing people to live through the moment. And as I share with you these stories, most of you guys are probably able to go back and resonate and go, there we go. I get it. I get where that is. But I think if you guys are just taking the story, that's one thing. What I want you guys to understand is the state of the people feeling, how frustrated I was back when I was trying to figure it out and wondering, everything's right. Everything I know of how to pitch this woman is right. She should be buying it right now. And until she was able to find that pain inside of her, until she was able to resolve that pain with my product, that's when she was able to take action. And for those of you that are really struggling with it, I need to think about it. What it is one, you're not finding out their pain. Or two, you're not allowing them to see or connect our product to the resolution to that pain. It's one of those two. If you're able to do that with every single tour, you will be able to sell a heck of a lot more. You'll make a ton of money and you'll kill it in this industry. Again, that's what I want to share about. Like I said, I want to talk about the number one objection that I hear today. So I got to think about it. If there's any other comments, thoughts, anything you guys can share, go ahead and share it with me. But other than that, it's a real quick one. Aloha. This is Kaleo with Sales Story Ninja. I'll talk to you guys later. Aloha.